Damn! If there has ever been a long time coming for something, this is probably it. At least on my channel. You see, ever since I started making wrestling reviews on YouTube, there has always been one question that has constantly kept popping up over and over again. As you had probably guessed, obviously, you would have read the title. That question is, review Day of Reckoning. Well, that's more of a request than an actual question. But requests imply asking somebody for something, so I'm gonna call it a requestion. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna do that. That's pretty stupid. Moving on. Seriously though, I've had a ton of comments, and they're all pretty much saying, please review Day of Reckoning. It's epic. Day of Reckoning, make it happen. That was really good, bro. Can't wait for Day of Reckoning. Review Day of Reckoning 1 and 2. Hey bro, can you review the Day of Wrecking series? Never has anybody left me a negative comment about this game. So that being said, let the review begin. Day of Reckoning was released in the later part of 2004 in North America and Europe, but it wasn't released until January of 2005 in Japan. The box art looks pretty interesting. Judging by the back, it's definitely the kind of wrestling game that makes you want to play it. Heck, there's even a rating sticker in front of the box by Cube Top Cube Game? Anyway, they gave this game a whopping 9.1 out of 10. Now that's impressive. Let's see what it's like. As I open the case and press the push here button, which releases the disc, then move my hand to pick up the disc. Have the intention to put the disc in as soon as possible. Then all of a sudden, marvel about how so frickin' small these discs are. I mean, holy hell. After the moment has passed, continue to proceed with the disc insertion into the Nintendo Wii. Afterwards, which I pick up the Gamecube controller, ready to play the game. Only to realize I need to use a Wiimote first. Shit. Once I picked up the Wiimote and push A, and move to the Gamecube logo and push start, it is only then that I will be able to play the game. Sorry, I just wasted your time, didn't I? I couldn't help myself. No more delays, onto the actual game as of now. This game has a pretty cool opening. Video, that is. It uses its own in-game graphics to build the hype, and it works well. The music instantly reminds me of the SmackDown games, which is okay, but I will not be comparing this game to Here Comes the Pain. And SmackDown vs. Raw is not a measuring stick, and I want this game to stand on its own merits. Too many people, including myself, use Here Comes the Pain and No Mercy as a comparison point. Anyway, the menu layout is great. It looks good, it's quick, and it's responsive, and it's simple to navigate through. This game has a tutorial mode, which is good. It's a pretty damn good tutorial mode. It has sections for basic, intermediate, and advanced stuff. It's extremely thorough. You won't have to get your ass kicked in exhibition before you're comfortable with the controls. Speaking of exhibition, let's check that out. As you can see here, you have all the standard matches that you would expect to see, which is good. There isn't really anything missing, maybe except for the Elimination Chamber. Well, that, and I don't see a 6-man match option of any kind. You have all the arenas, but you only start off with Raw and SmackDown. You gotta buy the rest of the arenas at Shop Zone. But we'll talk more about that later. Let's talk about the roster. This is definitely not the best thing about the game. You see, while most of the main superstars you would expect to see are there, this game just does not have a very big roster. This game only has about 40 wrestlers to choose from, and that's after you have unlocked the legends. There are about 5 legends to unlock, so you have 35 wrestlers off the bat, including the divas. So even though this is a scrolling type of selection screen, the screen seems to repeat itself rather quickly. The graphics for the most part are actually pretty impressive. In terms of lighting and texture and facial accuracy, I mean that actually looks like Triple H. The crowd, the ring, the arenas, overall looks very good. The creators did a decent job here. Now let's check out the gameplay. Straight away the controls are pretty easy to learn. You punch, you grapple with a single button each, and you hold down the punch button to do a more devastating punch. And the same applies for the grapple button. So the gameplay controls are pretty reminiscent of the old arcade wrestling games. I'm guessing this game would appeal to a lot of those people who do enjoy No Mercy and such. This game has a quick pace, which is what I think wrestling games should have, as it keeps the gameplay more interesting. The game has a vast variety of moves as well, which is good, obviously. There is no commentary in the game, which is okay for me. There are meters at the bottom which fills up as you perform more moves. It fills up the WWE logo with the color red. Each red filled letter allows you to do a finishing move. The finishing moves works the same way as WrestleMania 19 does. You have to perform the taunt, and then after that, you have a limited time to perform your actual finisher. The heartbeat monitor thing here is called a spirit meter. It's kind of like the stamina meter on the SmackDown games. It goes red if you do too many moves, and your character becomes sluggish and tired. I think the spirit meter also has something to do with this game's new feature, which they call a momentum shift. It's basically where you're getting your ass kicked, and your character hulks out, and the tide turns in your favor all of a sudden. Honestly, I never had a chance to use it. Even when the CPU had the opportunity to use a momentum shift, they never used it. So while it may be a cool thing, I can't comment on this because it never happened. At least not in my experience. Let's talk about the story mode. The story mode is a completely original story just for this game. You can't choose a wrestler, you have to choose a creative wrestler, which is something I don't really mind. If you can't be bothered making a wrestler, you can always choose a pre-made wrestler, which is what I did. So anyway, story mode starts off with Vince saying you're hired, but don't get your hopes up. You will have to start from the very bottom, and the very bottom being the development stage, with the coach giving you goals to do throughout each match as you work your way up through the ranks. You work your way up through the ranks and do crap that the coach wants you to do until eventually they let you wrestle dark matches on Heat. I think you get the idea. You keep working your way up to the televised matches, and eventually you end up with a choice to wrestle on Raw or SmackDown, which is interesting because the story mode doesn't really give you a whole lot of choices. The story mode is quite linear that way, but that's okay. I still enjoyed it. In my opinion, there's nothing wrong with linear, as long as it's done right. Overall, I found the story mode to be pretty interesting. You really get a sense of what it takes to become an actual WWE superstar. And managing to work your way through the ranks and seeing your character get better does give you a feeling of satisfaction. So yes, the story mode combined with great gameplay easily makes this game pretty enjoyable. The shop zone initially looks pretty basic, and well it is, but it does have a variety of stuff to choose from, being the arenas and moves, and wrestling moves mainly. There are lots of moves you can buy, and they even have moves like the Mandible Claw. But all the moves are primarily for Creative Wrestler though. Speaking of Creative Wrestler, this game has a pretty good Creative Wrestler mode. There is a ton of options to choose from, and even creating an entrance is pretty good. Well, it's pretty good for its time anyway. The user interface for the Creative Wrestler, for the most part, is good, although when you're trying to be specific, for example trying to find the right gloves, elbow pads, etc., I did find it a little confusing to find those features. But when you figure it all out and get used to it, it becomes pretty easy. Overall, the Creative Wrestler is pretty damn solid. Overall, Day of Reckoning is a pretty good installment to the wrestling games on the Gamecube. It has great graphics, great gameplay, solid Creative Wrestler, and a great story mode to top it all off. The developers stuck to what makes the wrestling game good. They didn't try to overcomplicate it or do way too much. Yeah, the roster is small, which is definitely a detriment to the game. Oh well. Now, all that being said, this game actually has a sequel, which is appropriately named WWE Day of Reckoning 2. From what I heard, it actually improves greatly from Day of Reckoning. Is this true? Find out next time. If there has ever been... Fuck! If there has ever been a long time something for coming, so you see, ever since... Well, that's more of a... Well, let's be, request... Never did I come across a single negative review of this. No one has ever talked near... All that being said, this game actually has a Overall, this is a pretty good installment to the Day of Reckoning games. Sure, the roster is pretty small, which is... Yeah, the roster is on the small side, which is definitely but yeah, next time on Lion's Edge. Ugh, that was lame. Damn! If there has ever been... You know what, I'm just gonna test it right now. Testing 129. Testing done. Be right back.